Hi, everybody. I see that we are letting people in into from the from the waiting room for the AI and wine webinar today. And thank you all for joining so much. We're gonna not wait too long before we jump right in to be respectful of everyone's time. I'm Kathy Hoya, co-founder and CEO of Enolytics, and Nadia Kincaid, Chief Marketing Officer at Pezzato Winery. And I are hosting this webinar and hosting the AI and Wine group, inspired by a Wine Women DTC group that Nadia hosted at Pezzato a few months ago. And there was so much interest and so much enthusiasm, and honestly, a fair amount of skepticism as well about AI and wine that we thought, let's make it into a series. So this is the fourth webinar that we are having in this series. It happens the second Friday of every month. And we were just saying that our list continues to grow. And it's really exciting. And there's clearly an appetite for this content. So thank you so much for joining. And I'm particularly excited about today's session with Andrea Savaiano and Terra Jane Albee. You had seen, I hope, their biographies from the email that we sent around. And they are here to show some really practical AI tools for winery teams. I believe they have five different things to show you. And just like normal, we hope that it will be a very interactive session. Andrea and Tara Jane would like for you to ask questions. We would like to hear from you. We would like for you to raise your hand if you would like to come off mute and jump into the conversation as we go along. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Nadia to take us further. Nadia, please.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a great intro. Just a couple housekeeping things. Kathy is actually in rural France, so she may or may not make it through the whole piece of it. So thank you for being here. And I will be handling everything on the back end. So if you have questions, pop it into the Q&A. And as she mentioned, we want it just to flow naturally. So if you put it in there, I'll make sure to flag it and ask it of our panelists today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Andrea and Tara Jane.
Great. Thank you, Nadia. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Savaiano. I'll give you a quick intro and then we'll hear more from TJ. I have spent part of my career in sales operations and analytics in the tech world. And then about 8 years ago, returned to wine and have worked at Costa Brown and Dumal, and now have my own consulting practice focused on DTC strategy and data infrastructure for premium wineries. And I got started with AI probably about a year ago as I was building my consulting practice and realizing that having a second sort of set of hands and brain to get things done as a solo consultant would be beneficial to my business. And it's been a fun exploration. I'm excited to share some of the things I've learned along the way.
Awesome. I'm Terra Jane Albee, and I've been in the wine industry for most of my career. And I've kind of run the gamut of working for wineries directly. I consulted for a long time now. I work at Vino Shipper, which is a software company supporting producers on both compliance and commerce. And I have a Slack call coming in. I'm going to decline right now. Sorry about that. I don't know if you could hear that. Oh, good. I think I got excited about AI when I was in college. I studied cognitive science, and that was a million years ago. So it was before AI ever existed. But the makings of the idea of it, like the theories around it, existed of, what makes a sentient being and all of those questions and some neuroscience. And now here we are, fast forward a million years later, and it's reality. And so I think I got excited a long time ago. And so I fear and love technology and AI very much. So I'm just excited to see how it goes. But I use it as a tool, and I kind of lead always with I want this will make my life better because and this will free me up to do things I like to do away from the computer in this way. That's kind of where I approach it from for my own personal life.
Great. So we are going to take you through a few examples of things that we have built and if you recall, 3 months ago, Stephen on the same webinar series challenged all of us to spend an hour a day on AI. And whether you have or haven't been doing that, we wanted to give some inspiration of additional things you could be doing or a place to get started if you haven't yet gotten going. So the list of tools and things that we want to share today are going to cover different aspects of sort of wine business operations, as well as different technical features of AI tools. And Terra Jane and I both use Claude as our preferred AI helper, and we can talk more about that if that's interesting. But to get started, we will dive into the first demo here. So we've both, Terra Jane and I both in our separate capacities have run into opportunities and challenges where two systems aren't talking to each other. And there's data in one place that needs to be translated into a different format and uploaded to a different place. And I'm sure everyone on this call can relate to that, has some example of where that happens in your world.
Oh
So for
yeah.
me, in addition to my consulting practice, my husband and I have a small wine brand, and we use Offset for our e-commerce, and then we have a fulfillment partner, but we have no integration that automatically sends the information from point A to point B. So every time we get an order, we have to export the order from Offset, translate it into a different format, and then upload it, or not upload it, but send an email with that file to our shipping partner. And it's one of those things that, of course, I love that we sell wine, but then I dread when we get a new order because I have to do this silly Excel translation. And I had a template to make it pretty quick, but I would still just like the exporting the file and the saving the file and all the pieces were just a drag. So I got inspired to create a Claude skill, and I would love to demo it for you now as we talk through the other aspects of this project, but let me get this started for us. So I created a skill that I can call up using this label, Pezzato shipping file, and I attach my, this is just dummy data in this 205 file.
I'm
So,
only seeing your
oh
slide.
shoot. Thank you
So
for
you might have to
letting me
unshare
know.
and
Let
share
me,
again.
yeah, let me share the right window. And let me see if I can, hold on, give me a second to start this over.
I thought that this was brilliant though, because the amount of time that I have spent mapping columns from one Excel file to another Excel file is a lot of hours in my life that I could have used in other ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see
So,
now.
okay, great. So here is where I'm typing in Pezzato. That's our label shipping file. So this is the skill that I created in Claude. And I'll tell you more about how I created that. And then I'm going to upload the 205 file. Again, this is dummy data, and push go there. So this is what the skill actually holds. So it's effectively a text document that's giving Claude a set of instructions to repeat in the same way every single time. And I did not write a single word of this. Claude generated this skill for me based on my prompting. So I said, Claude, let's create a skill for this task. Here's the original file. Here's the template that does the translation. And here's what I need it to do. And it took some iteration to get right, including updates I made yesterday as I was preparing for this demo. But it's a really robust process. And I've added some what's called human in the loop checks to make sure that I have control over the shipping methods and if we need to add insurance or if there are any other oddities. So it's just running through all of the pieces of that skill now. Terra Jane, do you want to talk more about the process that you developed and the similar to solve a similar
Yeah,
problem?
it's very similar. We did it as a project instead of as a skill, but at Vino Shipper, we migrate people from other platforms onto our platform, and so that they don't want to lose data. And so if they give us their files for their customers, their clubs, their order history, 100% of the time it's in a format that is not the way that we import data. And so it also comes in a lot of different every software has its own format of how they spit out information. And so we can now take information from any software and run it through our project, and it'll give us back a template that's in the way that we upload information and, customers, orders, tags, notes, all of these things. And it has been iterative because, Claude is not perfect. And so you do still have to have a person check the data. I would never just do it and then go ahead and upload it directly into our software. But it's pretty right. And as we've grown the project, we now know what to expect from every software. And so we can know that like this file, this column confused Claude once, it doesn't confuse Claude a second time. Whereas I think when I tried to do it, it would confuse me every time. And so it has saved us. I mean, it used to take us 2 weeks to migrate somebody on average. And now it's definitely cut that in half. And I mean, really, we could do somebody in a day now. It's pretty remarkable. So being able to cut down on that time, I actually used it myself personally. I built one for MailChimp because I had information coming in from 3 different places and I needed to get it all into a MailChimp list. And so I was able to do exactly the same thing. Just I did it as a skill, not as a project after you showed me this, Andrea. And
Nice.
yeah, it was interesting thinking about doing it as a skill versus a project, and I think we talked about that a little bit. But I still don't know myself. Like I did it as a skill after we talked because I wanted to see what the difference was, and I even after doing it as a skill versus a project, I still am not 100% sure um, which way I would go. I think I did the skill was it's just my personal a project that I was working on for a consulting project. But for our team, it's I think better to be in a project because we have an enterprise plan, and so there's a lot of people touching it, and a lot of people that are giving input into the project. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I have a
Yeah,
question
and I think
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned that it's mostly correct, and I think that's something that is kind of a core fear of a lot of people with using AI. So
Yeah.
how do you verify when you're checking it before you do go ahead and upload it into, your platform?
Yeah, the first couple times you really have to check like every single column and make sure that like you're mapping. So, because we had done this manually, we knew already from, say, if we're taking information from a software that we've done this process before, we know that like column C maps to our column AE, for example. And so we did give that information to Claude to begin with. So, I mean, those are for sure going to match. Um, you just have to make, every column has a header. So you just make sure like you don't have, 4 digits where it should be, a birthday or something like that. But, it's not, the mapping of data is not, it's not like you're doing high level math. It's just it's like tedious, it's like very detail oriented and tedious. And so it kind of doesn't matter if you have a spreadsheet that has 100,000 lines versus 15 lines. Like if you're just copying and pasting from one column to another, it's like the headers have to line up, Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
TJ, when you were talking about project versus skill, with the
Yeah.
way you set up a project to have sort of a repeatable outcome, is that kind of what
Mhm.
you've done with the project, is like added enough context that you can prompt the same thing and get a repeatable. And
Yeah.
so I guess how have you gone about doing that separate from the way you create a skill? Or what was the difference in creating either the skill or the project that resulted in a similar outcome?
Well, I haven't used the skill enough. I only used it since we talked the other day. So I haven't
Yeah.
used it enough to know yet if it behaves the same way as a project. So yeah, I don't know yet. I'm curious because I've been building everything as projects because then it lives in one space and I can find it easier. So when you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about all these skills that you had, I want to dig into that a little bit more and I don't know the answer yet, but I don't know, maybe somebody on here knows the answer about what the specific differences are, if it matters if you're on I did that on my personal plan versus like being on an enterprise plan. I'm not sure. Or sharing, like, could you share your skill with me? I guess you could share your prompt and then it would work for me.
Yeah, and I have to imagine in an enterprise environment that there's a way to have a shared skill repository, but I
Yeah.
don't. exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, it would have to be in projects is the main way to share stuff on the enterprise. So it
Yeah,
would have to be in a
I guess
project.
that
Maybe that's why.
you could put the skill in the project.
Hmm.
Kathy
Yeah.
has her hand up. Kathy, do you have?
I do, and forgive me. I'm afraid that I may have messed something up. Kimberly Whistler in the Q&A had asked a question about uploading identifiable customer data into the
Mhm.
tools, and how confident do we feel that this customer information is secure? So
Great question.
I answered it and I typed the answer, but then I just am worried that it went away from the Q&A box. So I hope that you all will take that question too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would not put sensitive or proprietary information or personal people's information into anything except an enterprise plan, because that with an enterprise plan, you control your own environment. I would definitely recommend that, doing it like that.
Yeah, I have that same perspective. And so what I'm doing here is not best practice with my customer shipping information on an individual plan. But this is fake data, so today's issue is not problematic. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments on this skill? Okay, in fact, let's see. I am going to share back to the screen. The next thing we wanted to showcase was calculating RFM with AI and Claude specifically again. So here I teed this up ahead of our call. So I've dropped in, and I guess for anyone who isn't familiar with RFM, this is a segmentation methodology that looks at the recency, frequency, and monetary value of a customer's orders so that you can group people into similar behavioral buckets and identify what their motivations might be and where they are in their customer journey and how you might want to be communicating with them or offering to them at any given point in time. So there's a grid here that shows what the buckets could be, and there are different versions of this. You could create your own. You also don't need this. I was playing around with this and just saying calculate RFM without giving Claude this grid as a point of reference. And Claude grouped into separate buckets based on my customer behavior. So that was actually interesting to see what Claude did on its own without me giving that boundary and that constraint. But for this example, I have anonymized data here and the customer RFM grid. And then I've said, calculate the RFM using the recency of order, frequency of order, and average order value, and then produce an image of the grid and a spreadsheet with the calculation. So we can run through this. And, to broaden this, RFM may or may not be the right segmentation methodology for your brand, but you can use Claude to do your segmentation. And you can either give the data to Claude and say, segment my data with this purpose in mind, and let Claude do some of the thinking for you, or you can think through how you want to do the segmentation and give those rules to Claude to apply. But we're moving away from the world of needing a big Excel spreadsheet or a specialized tool to do customer segmentation and getting more flexible and more dynamic with the AI engines.
Besides building lists with this, would you use this to find insights that would give you ideas for other marketing programs that you could come up with?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the interesting things as I look at this and, thinking about just looking at these categories, thinking about the way that I would want to reach out to each of these different populations and what sort of messaging and what sort of offer and how frequently I should be communicating with them. So yes, I think I always find some inspiration when I'm segmenting the list to identify who and how I want to be connecting
Mhm.
with people.
Have you seen Claude give any interesting ideas on its own of I think this would be a cool way for you to reach out to this group of people and speak to them in this way or offer this or
Yeah, one of my very first AI experiments that really took me beyond the write an email for me or outline something, just the text-based use cases, was uploading, again without PII, but uploading customer and order data and asking Claude to assess my business. And this was for our small wine brand. And my background is really in analysis, and so to upload this and outsource this work to Claude, I was wildly impressed. And that was even a year ago. It's gotten so much better in that time. But Claude did a whole summary of here's what your recent sales are, here's what your different customer sources are. And one of my questions was, how would we find new customers? And I can't remember any of the details, but there was a robust list of like 10 ideas for different marketing campaigns or outreach or avenues we should explore to grow our customer base based on the people already on our list and the ways we've gotten people so far.
Huh, that's cool. I know that
Yeah.
this is not the purpose of this webinar, but it does make me wonder, like, if you can say, "Oh, I liked idea 3, 4, and 6. Now go do it." Like, build a plan around it. So for somebody like Nadia, I'm just going to bring you into this conversation because this touches on your job entirely. Like, does that make you feel excited, and or does that make you feel nervous? Sorry, I'm totally out of the blue calling
Yeah,
on you about that.
no,
But
I think it's very exciting, and it's something I've actually been playing around with quite a bit.
yeah,
We just got upgraded to the team plan. We're working on implementing enterprise for the winery, so I'm excited to be able to give it a lot more information than I can give it now.
yeah.
But even being fairly vague with it, I've been impressed with the some of the suggestions and the summaries and how well it really has been able to understand our tone of voice and positioning,
Mhm.
and found that impressive.
I think it's fascinating, like the difference in mindset between I have a lot of friends who are very threatened by that and that are in marketing and are like, oh, my job's going to be ruined, or like our whole industry is, there's going to be no jobs. And I feel kind of the opposite. Like, I feel like this is going to make all of our jobs more fun and more interesting and more opportunities and all of these things. And I mean, it's everything's a pendulum, right? So like, I was just listening on NPR the other day. They were talking about, the spend that big companies are making into AI, but like it next year will tip where it'll actually be more impactful to have humans again, and financially it'll be better for companies to have humans again because the cost of AI has gone up and is going up so much. So I don't know, I don't have that sky is falling feeling about it. I have more excitement and understanding of big picture pendulum. So yeah, yeah, thanks. It's interesting to see how people land on that.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I,
feel like
I
it takes so much of the mundane out, like the really like the and so you can
Yeah.
focus on being much more strategic and working on
Hmm.
the initiatives that a human brain needs to be working on, and removing like this exactly like what Andrea is showing, this work that would have taken her, she now those hours can be reallocated to something that's
Hmm.
much more impactful for her business.
Yeah. I was reading something just the other day that the human work left is empathy and judgment. And so it's interesting to think about the shift in skills that people need to be effective in the workforce and an AI powered, AI enabled workforce. So this is the
Interesting.
output that we get from that prompt that I gave. You saw how it just worked through that in the background. There's the image here, so I can see a visual summary of the different categories and how many people and what the LTV in each group is. And then the spreadsheet here that has the full list of people with their RFM scores and their categorization, and then a summary and the methodology. So it's incredibly robust and gives a lot of detail. And we could keep going with this to say,
Hmm.
I have 27 people about to sleep. What should I do? And that's not the best prompt for AI, but I sometimes find it's nice to start there and then refine as I go. Because either I'll get something interesting that sparks a deeper thought that I can then shape a better prompt, or I can do the thought work myself and come back around. And Claude here is recommending don't don't do a heavy lift to try to get these people back because it's been too long already. So that's good learning too.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've been running this with multiple clients, right? And had success across the board.
Yeah, I mean, success in terms of ability to do the segmentation. And I think with a lot of the clients that I'm working with, we're doing a more robust segmentation approach that's specific to their brand and their business model. But I think this is
Hmm.
a good universal approach. So for smaller clients or people with a more standard sales approach, I think this works really well. But for allocated wineries, this is actually not great, and that's who a lot of my clients end up being.
Hmm. And then
Um, oh,
you
go
would
ahead.
make would you run this how often would you run this? Like would you
Mm.
then create the behaviors, like say you're using Klaviyo and you would create your segments and then so those are dynamic and then based on a
Mhm.
person's behavior, then they would have a certain number of automated tasks like emails or reach outs or whatever.
Right. Yeah. If you can automate it into a tool like Klaviyo, then you wouldn't need to necessarily rerun it in Claude unless there's
Hmm.
some change in methodology that you might want to play around with or employ that could then change the rules you build into Klaviyo.
Hmm.
But otherwise, if you aren't using something like Klaviyo, then I think rerunning an analysis like this after a major sales period or on a frequent cadence, whatever makes sense for your brand, so monthly, quarterly, annual, probably not annually, but monthly or quarterly, or pre and post big release periods.
Yeah. And how often would you like refine your segments if you were using something like Klaviyo?
Oh, like to change the definitions.
Yeah.
I tend to prefer consistency with that. I guess my answer would be only if something is broken or could be better, could be
Hmm.
optimized. Like if it's not working to reach the right people, or if you feel like the sales momentum is slowing. But to tinker with the segments as opposed to focusing more on the outreach and the actual customer connection
Hmm.
seems not always like the best use of time and energy.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And what else is really cool is the brand voice engine that you built at Vino Shipper. Can we move on to that?
Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, this project started because every year we do a review of all of our marketing and our comms. And this year we decided to do it with AI with Claude as a series of projects. And so we built out our brand voice. So we did like, the five brand pillars and the we're not this, we're this. And that that process just for our brand took actually quite a while. We'd done it before, just like, for our own internal marketing uses, but this time we wanted it to create a tool that like our customer service team could use, our support team could use, that we could use for our CEO has a Substack that he writes for. We have a sales team. We have all of these different ways that we communicate with people besides marketing. And so in order to get our voice really consistent based on who's talking, but have that commonality of the core of the way that the Vino Shipper brand communicates through all of it. And so what we did was we created first a series of projects for each of those groups, and then we have one master brand voice. And then each of those has a different one. So like, sales can be a little bit more um, salesy, and support is never salesy. Support is, really helpful and, just asks a lot of questions. Marketing is a lot more direct of like, we do this, not this, and sharing what we do. So we worked. One of the things that I found in it was that we had somebody set it up and we all worked on it, and that was a really bad idea because everybody, even if we all have the same end goal, like everybody approaches things in a really different way. And so my takeaway from that bigger project was have one person lead it. And so we have our comms manager is, I think, a brilliant person, and so she really built it, and then she gave it to everybody in leadership to use. And so we all used it for a couple of weeks and we gave feedback. And so one of the things that was cool was that it learns your own voice. So the goal was not to make it so like if customer service is sending an email that it only sounds like it's coming from one person, even though we have a whole customer support team. Each of them have their own voice. Each of them has their own way that they talk, and we want people to be personable and be themselves and be human. And so we don't want it to sound AI-ish. And so the way that we encouraged people to use it was, if it comes back and it doesn't sound like you, tell it how to sound like you more. And then also, for me, it, what I need help with personally is to like organize my thoughts because, I sometimes like lead with something and then I like remember something later in the email and I spend a lot of time trying to like make it sound coherent. And so for me, the structure of how to communicate was what really helped me. And then I could go back and put my own voice in it. And then I would send to Claude, I would say, like, this is what I actually use because this sounds like my voice. And now Claude is writing like me, but like if I put it in support, it sounds like me using the support voice. If I put it in marketing, it sounds like me using the marketing voice. And so it's learning me and it's learning each of our team members in their own Claudes, but with the overarching team shared voice. Did I explain that right? it's it's complex and it took us a long time, but it is wildly valuable now. And so we have a series of questions like, does this is this clear? Is it concise? Does it we want to stay away from sounding like a tech bro. We want to encourage producers. We want, does it satisfy all of these things? And so every communication has to satisfy all these 5 questions. And we fail a lot still. So it's getting us to all be better about the way that we're writing and communicating, but it is helping us a lot to also point out how inconsistent we are as humans. I think that's fun.
Yeah, that's such a cool project. How much did you rely on or leverage Claude in the development of the voices versus the
Oh,
sort of pushing out the information to the teams and using it as a tool once you have the voice defined?
wait, say that again. Sorry.
How much was Claude helping to define the voice versus
Oh,
being the tool that made the voice available to everyone on the team?
both. It helped define, I mean, it asks, so when you start we put in like our history of like our internal brand voice, like what we had written over the last
Hmm.
several years, all of the information we had. And so we put that in and then it asks a series of questions. Really, it just helps you get better organized to say like, do you sound like this or do you sound like this? And you say, no, I sound like this. And do you want to sound like this or do you want to sound like this? No, I want to sound like this. And so I mean, it took a very long time of going through refining little bits by bit by bit by bit of Claude asking questions so that when the full brand voice, like what you showed, was the skill Claude built itself, but you have to tell it how to build the skill. So it was the same
Hmm.
like building the brand voice, like you say, I want to do these 5 pillars, and so far my purpose is this, my values are this, my audience is this, as you go through your pillars are. But then it keeps asking you like, well, is it this or this, or is it this or this? Because it has to be very, very specific. And so you may think that your audience is, if you're a wine brand, you think your audience is anybody who likes wine. Or you assume that your audience is boomers with a high net income. But in fact, you have to be very specific. And so if you've done brand work before, you create your persona and it's like, a, 60-year-old tech single guy that lives in Pack Heights and has a cellar, you know? And so you get really, really specific. It's the same when you're building the brand voice, like you get very specific so that you can get broad again, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get specific so that you can communicate in the way that your audience will receive it and that
Yeah.
resonates with the audience. Yeah.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
surprised you most about the process that you went through for this
Um,
project?
how much we're not doing a good job as humans, like innately to avoid those five, the five, like our five don't avoid this. So, we want to always be clear and concise. We are not clear and concise as humans. We want to always be encouraging, but like inevitably, if you're doing customer service, like there's always that one that's like asking a question that you're like, come on, man, like you've asked this 17 times. And so you want to always be encouraging, but like it can be a challenge, right? So like this just checks you. I think for sales, the trap is always like, being kind of arrogant, frankly. And I think that we have been called out by that quite a lot now. And so I think that's awesome. Like that kind of the call out of like, this is like unattractive behavior that we do all the time, and we don't realize how in our own way we are. And so it just kind of calls you out on that. And I appreciate that because it's just human trappings. I mean, none of us
Right.
I mean, Claude also is not perfect. It also spits out stuff that I don't like and I don't want to read because sometimes it does sound too AI-y. So, it's you also have to say like that sounds like an AI robot wrote it, and it's like, oh, let me help put it back in your voice. Yeah.
Yeah, there's such an interesting interplay with what you've created because you're keeping it human with the actual human involvement, but you're checking it with the robot to prevent some of the humanness that you actually don't
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it'll
Right.
say like this is unclear what you're asking, like that happens a lot, I think.
Yeah. Nadia, go ahead.
Yeah, Andrea, there was a question that came in from the chat, and it said, Andrea, being in wine and non-wine, do you feel the consumer segmentation and recommendations on communications is accurate to our wine consumer behavior, unlike other CPG products?
Mm,
Oh, that's
that's a
interesting.
good question.
Um, is the question, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Is the person asking if our segmentation is appropriate for wine and how it differs from other industries?
There's an anonymous attendee, so I can't ask them to unmute. I would, the way I interpreted it is, do you feel that the consumer segmentation is accurate based on what you're seeing, like when you dig into where they are, and then
Mhm.
also to any of the recommendations, do they feel appropriate?
Okay. I think that, the biggest thing that I see with winery segmentation is sometimes we're trying to ask our segmentation to do too many jobs. And we're using it for our forecasting of our sales and also our messaging to our members and also what we offer to people. And with one single framework for all of those purposes. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for wineries is to get very clear about what the purpose of your segmentation is. And at risk of adding complexity, perhaps having multiple types of segmentation or different methodologies for different purposes. Because it might be that you want to communicate with all of your boomer generation Chardonnay buyers in the same way, but that's not going to be a homogeneous enough cohort to be an accurate forecasting tool. So depending on what you're using segmentation for, I would really be thoughtful about the purpose and the makeup of the group. And that's one of the I think if a piece of that question may have been around, is the segmentation accurate or correct? And I think that really again goes to the purpose of it. But one of the things I've seen is people using the segmentation that makes a lot of sense for the marketing in a sales forecast. And then you end up with people who have purchased 3 years ago or 3 months ago in the same bucket. And it's hard to get a consistent forecast read when with that sort of variability within the same group. So again, being very clear about what the purpose of the segmentation is. And then I think the recommendations follow from that. And once you have clarity on the purpose of your segmentation, I think the what you're going to do about it and with it comes more clearly.
So more like start with the question and then go back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like if your question is, I need to produce a forecast, how should I think about my customer behavior to produce a good sales forecast? That's very different from I need to send a message to everyone in my list, or we're releasing the next vintage of our wine. How should I be communicating with these thousands of people on the list.
Mhm.
Um, and you're going to get two very different answers with those two use cases. And then you might also have, we're hosting an event at the winery, and I have, unlimited number of spots. So I want to be thoughtful about who I invite first. That would be even yet a different segmentation approach. And again, with AI, I think we now have the ability to process more of these because it's faster and easier. So, whereas months or years ago, it might have been harder to manage multiple segmentation methodologies or multiple types of segmentation. Now we have all of this at our fingertips within 10, 15 minutes.
That's great. Thank you. There's a couple good questions that have come in around the brand voice. So I'm going to let Amy Bach unmute so she can ask her question, and then we'll let Jack ask his question.
Thanks, Nadia. I don't think mine's so much a question as it is a comment about how much time you spend training your agent in your voice. And I think, Terra, maybe you were the one that brought this up, which is like it always comes out sounding AI. I jokingly refer to it as the robot overlord tone. And again, it's just no matter how long I spend, I just always take it out and then end up refining it so it sounds, a little less robot AI. So I guess I'm curious, has anybody figured out how to train their agents so they're not having to do that?
I think it's so much data. So this is just anecdotal, but if you ask, so somebody that's written a lot that's in our industry is Randall Graham of Bonnie
Mm-hmm.
Doon Write. He's been writing he has 40 years worth of blogs that are very long
Yeah.
online. And if you this is a fun experiment, actually, if you're familiar with his writing, go into Claude or Chat or whatever you use and be like, write me a blog post about XYZ in the voice of Randall Graham. And I swear to God, it will. I have showed it to Randall Graham, and he's like, did I write that actually? So, I mean, I think it comes from he's written so much, and there is so much out there for
Yeah.
the AI to read and to build something that looks like him. I mean, when we're using this, like, I mean, I don't have a 40 years of my voice anywhere online, and so I'm just consistently doing this, and I've been doing it for, I guess, a year plus, 2 years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. So, I mean, it just doesn't, I don't think it's had enough time yet, but I mean, it's pretty close for me at this point. Um, and,
Cool.
but that's in my own voice, to make things sound more like me. So, uh, with the branding, like, that I think this is kind of one of the challenges is like you're trying to write in a voice that's not one person's voice versus, so
Yeah.
it's a brand voice. It's not my voice. It's me speaking as a Vino Shipper employee, but with still Terra's voice. And that is a longer iteration than just saying like write an email in my voice, because my voice is casual and
Yeah.
chatty, and
Exactly.
that's a different voice than the brand voice. Um, but I really think it's just time and iteration. But that I was floored when I did that Randall Graham experiment and was like, oh my God. It's like, but it just has so much information on the way that he speaks, and it's a
Yes.
uh, very specific style of writing and communicating. So it's, I guess, easier to replicate. But
I'm of the age that
yeah,
I'm glad the AI isn't looking at 20 years of my online writings,
yeah,
maybe 30 years, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm glad that was anonymous. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was
I
saying to
think there's
Andrea the other day, like, if I ever have to write "Spring has sprung in the vineyard" again, I'd like want to like just stab my eyeballs out. But
yeah.
after so many
I
years of writing emails,
Another hack, which isn't perfect, but might shortcut some of that, removing the AI robotic tone, is you can give certain instructions. Like in my Claude, I've said no M dashes as like a very
Mhm.
obvious AI tell. There are other things, and you can like Google a list of just like, here are the things that people register or read as AI. And you can feed that into Claude and say, please don't do any of this. That doesn't quite get to like using your voice, but it at least eliminates some of the like known robotic tone that comes up in a lot of communication. It's all over LinkedIn.
Yeah, we have a list of in each of our brand voice projects of raise words and phrases to retire. So like one of them is streamline operations. We don't want to say that. We want to name the specific operation, or instead of saying please don't hesitate to reach out, reply here / email us. Instead of saying like empowering producers too, we want to say producers can. So it's these small but very specific things that really move the needle on your comms.
Thank you. And then I wanted to pass it over to Jack to ask his question.
Hi, yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, from the psycholinguistics point of view, there's research showing that self-assessed voice and externally measured language diverge quite a bit, and I'm just curious how you know that it's working, like when you get Claude to train on your voice.
I mean, that's the human part. That's the empathy and judgment I think that Andrea was talking about, that it is yeah, I mean, it's just you read it and you just kind of know. Is that
Right. Yeah.
And it sounds like there's some research that says we can't know because our perception is inherently flawed.
I don't know if I wouldn't say flawed. I just think that there are more dimensions to it than what we think we hear, and that certain research can show that in a kind of almost creepy way. But yeah, no, it's super fascinating to do to train on your own voice, and
yeah.
it's also fascinating to see what some of these outputs can like that I've used before in the research that I'm mentioning. It's fascinating to see what comes out of those as well.
Yeah, I'd love
Absolutely.
to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, you said you had a behavioral psych background, is that correct?
Cognitive
Yeah.
science, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that would probably interest you quite a bit.
Yeah, please
Yeah,
send me anything I can read about it. That's
I will. Yeah, I have a lot that I
it's
could say.
our humanness is, and our flaws are, I mean, really our flaws and inconsistency is the main thing that makes us human, right? So I mean, that's building that into AI is one of the things that I find so interesting, is building these the flaws and inconsistencies into AI to make it more like us, because we are so flawed.
And
Yeah, yeah.
I just heard of a company that now you can subscribe to their service to have it edit your emails with a varying
Mhm.
level of error and flaws because things have gotten so perfect with AI that now if you want to sound more human, you can apply this additional robotic layer to add back the errors.
There's a brand I worked with some years back, and the guy that did the marketing, he was adamant that in every email he had to have a word misspelled because it would show that a human did it. So like he would write the email and it would be, great, and then he would go back and like put in some spelling errors or a
Add
comma in the
typos.
wrong place, and I was like, why?
Yeah, you didn't have to do that back then.
No. Ahead of his time, I guess. I never understood that
Yeah.
one.
If there are no more questions around brand voice, we can move on to our next.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Great.
I
So,
love this. I love this so much. I'm so proud of you for this one.
oh, thank you. This has been a fun one and really interesting. Again, I'm working on my own as a solo freelance consultant. So I'm managing a lot all the time with a pipeline and different clients and also family and also a house and also my own wine brand and it just the list is, a mile long and my calendar is always full. And I, over the last 2 months, have been exploring with this daily briefing system. So I've um the my goal in doing this was to sort of simplify, well, the goal was simplify. I don't know if I've achieved that, but to clarify, excuse me, so that I can better manage all of it and make sure I'm getting the right things at the right time. So I was inspired by posts I saw on LinkedIn, and there are a lot of them. And you can find various versions of ways people have created this, virtual executive assistant or a chief of staff, or I've called mine a daily briefing system. And in short, I've connected Claude Cowork to my calendar, my to-do list, and kind of a weekly ideal schedule for myself that has deep work blocks and networking blocks and the time block for when I drop off and pick up my kids. And then I can list my priorities for the week. And every morning I get an email that has my calendar for the day, my top three to-dos, what I need to actually accomplish, and other open items that are not priorities for today, and my calendar for tomorrow, and other things that are coming up. And putting this together has been really valuable because it's made it easier for me to see where my time is going, and when I'm not getting all of the things done that I think I need or want to, I can more clearly assess sort of whether it was a priority gap that I was, prioritizing, or perhaps spending time on things that weren't actually top priorities, or not actually blocking time for the things that I needed to. And so one of the improvements that I've made based on all the iterations of this is to have time blocked on my calendar now 4 weeks out to identify what are my deep work blocks and what are my networking blocks, so that I'm protecting both of those times separately, and not having them overlap in a way that allows me to do neither well. And I've also been able to evolve this. So initially, I was just going to Claude Cowork every morning, which is on my computer, and I wasn't always opening my computer first thing. And now I have it saved as a draft in my email, so I can access it from my phone or wherever I am. And it's also evolved to now it will draft responses to emails in my inbox in the morning. It doesn't send anything. But when I wake up, every email that's come in the last 24 hours has a draft response for me to review and edit and then send out. So I feel like I'm gaining efficiency and clarity, and it's not perfect by any means. There's a lot more I can do with it. But I've been really excited about having this organization for myself. And I think it's truly one of the easier things to set up with AI, because again, no code, it's Cloud Cowork. You're just and actually I wrote you're connecting it to your email, you're connecting it to your calendar, and then you're connecting it to whatever format you want to use as a to-do list. And truly, the prompt that I wrote when I was first setting this up was, I need to create an operating system for myself. Can you prompt me through the process? I went back and looked at that from 2 months ago. And now this looks so silly for everything I know today of like what a good prompt would look like. This is a terrible one, but it got me started. And I linked an article that had an example of one of these operating systems. So it was there was some framework there that Claude could reference. But you can truly start from almost nothing and refine it and adopt it to create something that works well for you.
I love this. It seems so simple and easy, but like I cannot believe I mean, I don't know, it seems so obvious, but I have not done this, and I didn't think of it until you told me that you were doing this.
Yeah, and like I said, I see versions of it all over in LinkedIn with various sort of use cases, and people are pulling in their meeting notes, and it can be as broad or narrow as you want it to be, and dynamic or static as is useful to you. But I've even had interesting use cases, like I sat down at my computer with 20 minutes to between two different things, saying, what needs my attention right now? And this surfaced a system generated email that someone was feeling frustrated or blocked on a specific project. And I was able to pay attention to that, which I never in those 20 minutes was not going to sift through every email, especially these system generated emails, to find that one opportunity. But Claude flagged that for me, and it was great. I can address that and two more things.
Yeah, that was so cool because it made me think about, we haven't done this, and I don't know if Kathy, if you have done this at Analytics, but like with your ticketing system, when you have tickets come in, and like if they're high priority or low priority or medium or whatever, it all depends on if somebody clicks like this is high priority, but you don't know the tone. And so I was thinking, is there a way that we could put this? We use Freshdesk for our ticketing system, and I haven't tried it yet because I just thought of it when you told me about this project, but I want to see if there's a way that we can detect tone in customer emails so that we can surface the ones that are, people that are the most frustrated or the most acute. But then I also think about, when you're like, operator, I said, operator, give me a human, Kathy, have you been able to do that at Analytics, or have you thought of that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just trying to type in a webinar chat to give you all to just be mindful of the time. And I know,
Okay.
Tara Jane, there's one more response. The short answer is yes. The short answer, we're constantly monitoring the questions that are asked in Robin, as well as the questions that are asked through email. And I'll put a more elaborate answer in the chat. Then let me just send it back to you, TJ.
Awesome. Please do. I'm excited to set that up. Yes, mindful of time. The last thing to show
Yeah.
is really something that is just um, funny and silly, and something I did when I was just super frustrated one day, which I think everyone that's in wine understands frustration with compliance and with direct shipping laws because they're so archaic and stupid. And so I built a game. And so this game is called, am I sharing my screen?
No.
Let's see.
No,
Okay,
not
hang
yet.
on. Let me find it for us. Here we go. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Okay.
Yep.
So this game is called Can You Ship It? Yes, you can. And so I built this game called Can You Ship It? And it's a roulette, which is how I feel like sometimes DTC shipping feels. And so you see what the customer, who the customer is, their age. This person's 11. They're in Virginia. And then you can see the year to date, how many cases they've had shipped so far, what the state limit is, if you have a permit to ship there or not. And then you say, like, can you ship it? And then it spins and it makes noise. And you keep going, and then it tells you like, yes, you can, or no, you can't. So like then the next one, this person's, you can, I messed up. I got it wrong. And so you go through 5 different ones, and I'm wrong on it all the time because like the winery doesn't hold a DTC permit in Colorado. This one is for someone who's 25, but I made it wrong because the shipment is blocked for all of these sundry reasons. And it just was something that like my point of showing this to you is we shared this with some of our producers. Um, and then it's like, well, compliance is a lot. Um, and it just was something fun and silly, and we sent it out a little bit. We didn't like do a big marketing thing around it, but it was just something fun to do, and I just shared it as a reminder that we can do fun things. It doesn't have to be like these big serious intense projects. I did built this in like, I don't know, maybe it took 45 minutes or an hour of being like, I don't like that color, I like this color. So I don't write CSS, and I don't write all this stuff. It gave me the code to put into and told me to go to CodePen actually and how to build it. And I think that you could do a lot of things as a winery. Like you could build a roulette about what you should drink tonight, or there's infinite possibilities. So I think really like get creative and have fun, and don't be afraid of this. Like if this came out like a stupid game, which it is, like then whatever. You spent 45 minutes getting your frustrations about archaic shipping laws out of your system. So just have fun, you know? That's
Yeah, this is a great example of that. And did you build this with Claude Code?
yeah,
Yeah, and you didn't write any code.
I wrote zero code.
It's amazing.
And it gave me the files to paste into each of these, and yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's just something silly to do, and I just like I want things should still be fun. Like we don't have to be so serious, and it doesn't all have to be this big, massive, introspective project.
exactly. And with all the time saved on the important things, this is where we can be doing the fun stuff.
Totally.
It is really
Totally.
fun. I think it could be a really fun, I mean, to do for your customers, but also it could be a fun way to train staff in a much less, you know,
Yes.
It's a great
boring
idea.
way than just, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you guys, that was really fun and engaging and very informative. I really appreciate your time spent and the examples that you shared with all of us. And for everyone else, I will go ahead and we will send out the recording and a survey. We love to always understand, what people think of everything, and then also what they're interested in hearing next. And some of you, I see who you are let me know if you are interested in being panelists in future ones. So with that, just again, a huge thanks to Tara Jane and Andrea, and of course, Kathy. I hope everyone has a great Friday.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.